We're recording. Let me just do my little intro. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Think Ribbon, the podcast where we talk about the things that we think about. I am joined today by a special guest, Bropez, who is actually a very good friend of mine, and we went to college together. So, would you like to quickly introduce yourself and tell people what you do?
But not quickly, but yeah, hi. So I'm Chris. Last name Lopez. Kai knows me as Bropez, just college. Um, Long story long already. See, not even 2 seconds in. An artist, animator, comic book illustrator, kinds of different things. So yeah.
Yeah, and his artwork's really, really good. Um,
Oh.
yeah, check it out. But anyway, so yeah, I wanted to have him on here because we both went to art school, and I feel like there's a really large amount of people who either are interested in learning art or want to further their artistic ability, but then when you get into the logistics of college and expenses and all that stuff, it can be very overwhelming. So hopefully we can help break down all of that stuff for you guys, which is really funny because the second podcast that just went up today was with Jazz, who's now just going into art school. So this is kind of like, you're going to see the coming out the other end and what that's like, because it's a doozy. But we'll get to all that. So first, I guess I'll talk about what I went to art school for, and then you can for you. But I actually started in game programming at DeVry in Phoenix, and I'm horrible at math. I suck at programming. It was just not a good time for me. I made a horrible mistake, and I was there for about a year doing my just required courses like math and English and all that stuff. And right across the street was the Art Institute of Phoenix. And I looked at it every day going to DeVry, just like, I really should be at that school. And then one day I just went in and I talked to admissions and I was like, can you give me a tour? I just want to see. And by the end of the tour, I was like, sign me up. So they were able to transfer all my credits and everything
You
over.
just wandered in, and they
Mm-hmm.
said, "Sure, come on in." That's insane.
Yeah. And they're like, get out of here,
Who are you?
programmers. I'm
Get
like,
out.
I'm not a programmer, I swear. I'm in the wrong place. Yeah, and then I actually started, they put me in animation. I don't know why. They did like my interview and they looked at my artwork and they're like, you should be in animation. And I was like, well, I don't want to, I want to do video games, but okay. So I was in animation for about 6 months, and then I met with one of our deans, and he's like, yeah, you need to be in like game art. He made me do like an art test in 3D or whatever, and he knew how much I love 3D art specifically. So then I went into game art and design, which is what my bachelor's was in, and that's the gist of that. What about for you?
Um, my journey was a little different. I mean, grew up comic book nerd, super into, wanting to be a 2D illustrator. And I was graduating high school, and my parents are like, you have to find something. Like, if you don't figure it out, kicking you out essentially. So it's actually funny because I looked at DeVry as well too, but they were trying to get me like in graphic design, and I was like, yeah, graphics, video game graphics. That sounds like what I want to do. And again, I love video games. It was purely just a hobby at that point. I was like, I need to do comics. So we went and checked out DeVry. I learned that graphic design is more logos, marketing, kind of like the more technical side of art. And I was like, absolutely not. But same, literally, because in that parking lot, it's literally the DeVry, Dakenberger, then the Art Institute. So we did the same thing. We like walked across, and my mom and dad were like, "Hey, check this place out." So same thing. We did the tour. They said, we think that you'd be really good for animation. Um, but the more challenging one is video game art design. And so that's what I originally started as. And then kind of towards the end, my last few classes before I left were like animation focused. Um, that's same thing. The photography, the design, the 2D illustration. Um, that was kind of just the journey up until where I'm at today.
Okay. And you really enjoy animation. I mean, I've seen your work, and I know, I mean, as you can see behind you, like, you're really into comic books and all that stuff. That's always how I've known you, and I think that that's the right fit for you. And I know that well, the funny thing is, even though I love doing game art, like my real talent is game design. That's what I'm better at, even though I wish I was a better artist. But, I think game design is also, it can be very difficult if you don't know what you're doing. Like, we've all played a game that was really pretty, but it was really, like, bad, like, not fun or bad controls or whatever. So, graphics are not everything. But it's interesting because whether it's animation, game art, whatever, I think everybody ends up falling into that thing that they're really good at. And if you're eventually going to work for a studio of, animation, video games, whatever, it's really important for you to know what your strengths are and your weaknesses so that you don't get put in the wrong position and then end up in a very stressful place. But all of that is assuming you can even get a job in the industry,
Yeah.
which is like, when we graduated, I think there was one girl who ended up getting a job at Disney. Another one started their own studio, which I don't know if it's still going, and everybody else ended up working in like fast food, Starbucks, like answering phones, whatever. Nobody ended up in the industry, myself included. I didn't get any job offers, like, and that's where we start to get into why art school may not be worth it for everyone. Putting it out there right away, I graduated with about $70,000 in student debt. And I have not paid a cent of it. I don't plan to. And here's the weird thing, because immediately after graduation, I moved to Japan, so they couldn't find me. I just disappeared. And when I got back, no one ever contacted me. And then somehow collections finally like nailed me down. I think it was when I applied for a job because I had to use my social security number.
At Baskin Robbins.
Yeah.
Always find out.
Damn it. But
Damn it.
the weird thing is they showed the amount was under 10,000 of what I owe, and I guess that's what happens is over time the amount just goes lower and lower as it gets passed from collection agencies. I'm not telling people not to pay their student debt. I'm just saying that that's what happened to me.
Yeah. What's crazy is a few years ago, because this was a huge thing, because at a high school, no credit established. I was working at a comic book shop, so just no money at all. And so Parent Plus loan, very predatory, just very aggressive with just getting you in those doors. And I think that's a lot of like the downside to the college art school experience was just how much debt come out of with that school.
Mm-hmm.
But literally, like, I was doing all that I can, the whole forbearance and trying to like deferment and try to talk to all these like lenders to get them bought out, and just over time you have like this huge amount and then they start to kind of like drop, and I don't know where they went. I'm not going to question it.
Yeah.
It just over time they just like, well, this guy's obviously not going to pay his stuff, so they have to do something with it. I just one of those things, you don't ask that question because you're afraid to bring it up. They're like, oh yeah, just kidding, we put it back here in the corner until you're ready for it, kind of thing.
It's like, don't rock the boat, just shh.
Yeah. Am I wrong to think like outside of school within the last 5 years, and I would say like now being 31 years old, like, right, I'm an adult. I've been an adult for a while, but I would say like a lot of my young adulthood, early 20s, there was such a huge stressor. Be like, I need to pay this back. Like everything was focused on, if I'm not making art for money or to like promote myself, it was this huge push to pay back this like, just unfathomable idea of like a mountain of debt, essentially. Is that just me, or did you like go through a period of time where you were just as stressed?
It's everyone. We live in a country where literally they're like, hey, we've got a great idea. How about we take people just entering adulthood and throw them into unrecoverable debt, for their education that doesn't result in jobs. Like, people don't understand. Like, it's like millennials, I know they're a stereotype or whatever, but like, this is the shit we have to deal with. You promised us like we'd get a house and we'd be able to have like dogs running around. All we had to do was go to college and everything would be okay. And that is not the fucking case. And not just for art, for like all school. Like, unless you're like connected, that's a whole different conversation. That's just the education system in America in general. But I have a very unique take on this because I worked in admissions. I don't know if you remember, I worked at the front desk. and I got to see all the behind the scenes stuff. So I'd be back there filing while they're on their sales calls, and I would just like listen, and I was like, wow, this is not a college, this is a business.
Yeah.
And it's just like, whoa. And for those of you who don't know, the school we went to is now like defunct. It's bankrupt
Gone.
because they're under like
Got
so
sued.
many class action
Yeah.
lawsuits. And
That's why I think a lot of the loan conversation around that school in particular kind of disappeared. Just because of the shady practices and well, that was the other thing too, is that when you first step in those doors as a young artist, creative, you're like, this place is going to give me the tools, the resources. It's like walking into Disneyland. Like you're just so enamored by like these other people that are in the same mindset as you that want to make something. So you kind of get swept away in this idea. They tell you, oh man, you can go work for Pixar, you can
mm-hmm.
be, on The Simpsons, you can do all this wonderful stuff. We have teachers that worked on Star Trek, and you're kind of like really like grabbed and like yanked into this whole
Yeah,
system.
it is a
And
sales pitch.
yeah, and it's a really good one. I mean, it worked on me because in no way did I want to do video games. No way did I want to do cartoons. I was like, I'm gonna go uh, get a degree in art so I can be drawing Spider-Man. I can do Avengers and X-Men. I want to move to New York. And then it happened. Like it was a whole like 180 turn. I learned a lot of really cool stuff. I mean, like the web design, the 3D programs with Max and Maya is something I never thought I'd ever open or touch. Um, to this day, I love that I went to that art school only because it introduced me to Photoshop. I mean, everything I do, you've seen it, is 100% digital. A lot of people I know are always going to be traditionalist with their pens and papers. But I mean, without that school, I personally never would have dove into the digital realm of kind of artwork. So there's a
Yeah.
lot of benefits too. I don't want to just sit here and trash it,
No,
you
and,
know.
and you do bring up a good point because that's actually very true. There was a ton of stuff that I would have never done. I mean, because they get you in everything. You do like still life, figure drawing, you do sculpture, you do like just graphic design, you do like some people did like typography as an elective,
There's
and
like
then
stop motion. I mean, I would hang out like in the fashion design classes just because you get to learn about costuming.
yeah,
It was very informative. Photography even. There was so much to it. So I learned a lot, but at the same time, I would kind of say one of the main things going into that I knew that they would try to do was they try to box you in. Be a realistic artist in terms of like draw human anatomy correctly. Don't be stylized. Anime is a no. It was so informative.
nobody hates
No,
anime more than art school teachers. Let me tell you.
it it doesn't make sense. It was such like a bizarre idea going in there, and that would be not even as a person still struggling with student debt. My biggest advice I would say is not even don't do it because it's a lot financially. Uh, my main thing would be don't let anyone change what you want to do with your art. If you want to go,
Yeah.
be a YouTuber, if you want to draw NFTs or whatever it is, like don't let anyone tell you that no, that's not how it works.
Yeah.
You know what you want to do,
Well,
so do it.
yeah, that's the thing is you have to be careful because sometimes you'll end up having to unlearn things they taught you to go back to what you know, and it really comes down to you. I don't really think art school is good for people who have zero experience with art. I like that's one thing that really bothered me too is I saw so many people come into admissions because I was one who signed them in, and they just looked completely lost and confused, and they'd bring their little portfolio, and like I don't mean this to sound like a dick, I'm just being like honest. It sometimes their artwork was absolutely awful, and it's not that they didn't have the potential, it's that they just they weren't quite there yet. And you would see these admissions people just be like, oh, it's fantastic, yeah, you've got like a bright future, you're gonna be just fine, and they would just talk them up, your art is so good, and I'm like, no, it's not, like like, oh
Looks like
god.
math.
Like, I mean, it's like when you see like DeviantArt where you're like, ooh, like okay, sure. It was like that kind of art where it's just like, oh no, like
We'll talk
misshapen
though.
heads and all that stuff. And it's not that it's that they're bad. They've got, if you have the motivation, all that, I mean, that's half the battle right there, and you can learn all that. But like, I kind of feel like if you go to an art school that doesn't accept everyone, you're probably a lot better off as far as the value you're getting out of your education, you know?
Well, I would say that's like red flag, right? Like
Yeah, if they just
if
accept
you
everyone, it's like, uh-oh.
if they accept anyone and they're very like streamlined in terms of like they promise, oh, as soon as you're done, you're gonna get a job. That's just not how the world works. And as naive kids coming out of high school, me personally, I didn't know any better,
Well, we
and
didn't know
neither
how
did
the
my
world
parents.
works. We rely on
So it was
adults to tell us.
yeah. But no, I really enjoyed art school. I think it took a lot of my creative aspects, and I got to really explore different avenues to express myself artistically that I never would have. A lot of 3D sculpting programs. I mean, just even programming, visually within like Unreal Engine, in Unity. And the crazy part too, Kai, is I think the part that I almost wish, you ever have that like the concept, if you can go back in time, what would you tell your younger self?
Oh
I would tell
yeah.
myself everything out there that I learned in art school, 100% on YouTube,
Well,
but free.
you have to remember back then we didn't have that. I know it's hard to put yourself back in 2000 like 9 or whenever it was, but like
Yeah,
YouTube tutorials weren't really a
2009.
thing yet. Because
That
now,
like 13
now,
years ago.
yes,
How long?
like I've learned more on YouTube in the past like 3 or 4 years than I did in all of my education, and it was way cheaper because it was free.
It, I mean, library. I mean, you could go stand in the Barnes and Noble and just read through a bunch of different resources. Whatever YouTube was at the time, Vimeo. I know Skillshare is pretty new, but if you want to learn, I would say definitely make the effort. Holding yourself accountable, but really, you don't have to go to these extravagant, expensive, huge schools to make it. And I would say that we're probably a testament to that, right? We went
Hmm.
through these courses, we learned a lot. In no way would I say like anyone else who doesn't have that opportunity or that privilege to go is going to be any like less off or better. The information's out there, and today's
Yeah.
internet is so connected. I mean, if you want to find it, it's
And
definitely there.
like even furthering that, because we're in a creative field, a lot of companies don't necessarily require that you have a bachelor's degree. If you've got to worry about stuff like visas or whatever, some companies, obviously for that they will, but there are some companies who just straight up like, let's see your degree or whatever. But at the end of the day, if your work is really good, you're gonna get the job,
Speaks
and
for itself.
yeah, if
100%.
you want to learn, like if you really want to learn and you need instruction and there's nothing out there for you, like for example, I think it's called Animation Mentor. Not a sponsor or anything. I've just seen their videos. You can find their animation, like their student reels. They do like a year every year. It's like a mini school where they just teach you animation, and I think it's two $2,300 $3,000 for the entire course. But when you see the final work, literally I've never seen bad work come out of that program, and I've almost considered it, but it was in Maya, and I'm like, ugh, I don't want to learn Maya. But the point I'm making is that there is stuff out there that you can learn formally if you want, and while it's not an actual like class like college course, it's enough like quality wise that even though it seems really expensive, you'll probably really get your money's worth and spend way less than you would just going to art school.
Yeah. And I would even say too, like, because social media is so uh, bringing you pretty much up to like your people that you idolize, the artists that inspire you. There's a lot of people out there. And for me, specifically saying like within like the cartoon industry and within the comic industry, that do so many like private courses that are only like a couple $100 at
Hmm.
like you're not just like one, you're supporting someone that you like love, you're giving back to these creators, and then you're learning, from like a master. You're cutting out the middleman. You're not in debt. You get to save these videos on your hard drive and go back and rewatch them. And you get to like learn technique and style, and it's so much more personable. And I would love to talk about like artists that inspire me like down the road because Butch Hartman, creator of like the Fairly Odd Parents,
Hmm.
Todd McFarlane, creator of Spawn, not necessarily a big fan of their artwork, but just accessibility and willingness to talk to their fans and share a lot of really good tips. I mean, it's out there, So I would just say you got to just you know
No, I know what you mean, and I really like that. I actually hadn't thought of that because I would much rather support, a creator directly, especially if I'm a fan of their work, than, give money to an evil corporation that's taking advantage of you.
take it to the man, like don't let corporate
Exactly.
corporate America take your money.
And
They'll
that's
drain you.
where we get into like the dilemma of answering the question, should you go to school for art or should you just learn it on your own? Because then, like, let's say you're a parent and your child really just, that that's what they want to do with their life. They want to be an artist. What do you do? You know?
Um, well, let me ask this, right? So let's not even do like the time machine thing. Let's say you have a kid and they want to go to art school. What would you say? Like after your experience with it, with your knowledge now, your position of being able to kind of direct them, how would you encourage them in their path to want to do this, but at the same time lead them through this, jungle of, debt and stress? I mean,
Yeah.
because not even the money aspect of it, midterms suck. Finals are so stressful. I felt like there was so many projects that I could have done so many wonderful things, but both time and just needing to crap it out to get a grade really kind of sucked the fun out of a lot of different projects. And
Yeah.
uh, art school turned a lot of what I wanted to do into just an assignment, into just homework. And I
Right.
would say that was another one of the things that I kind of struggled with. But what would you say? Like, how would you approach that?
No, that's hard, and you have to break it down and go back even before all the application stuff starts. I would like tell my kid, you're gonna live with me while you're in school. I know you don't want to, but what I would do is sit them down and I would just, okay, you want to get your own apartment? Here's how much it's gonna be per month. You want to do this? You want to get that? You're gonna need a car. Show how much they're gonna have to pay for everything, and be like, do you want to pay all that, or would you rather save that living here? And also, you don't have to be hungry because like I was so skinny in college. Well, actually, I gained weight because all those muffins, but I ironically gained weight and I wasn't eating at the same time. That was weird. But I think because like again the American education system failed us. We never learned about like mortgages or like interest or any of that. They don't teach you that in school, and then taxes and all that. So like that's where I would start. I would just be like, here's what you're in for. Like, there's that. But I would also try to be supportive of whatever they wanted to do and, have, I don't know. I think I'd really try to seek out all the scholarships I could and then all that stuff. And that obviously takes care of the money. When it comes to actual school, if I didn't think they truly needed it, I don't know if I would encourage it. But I mean, I hate to keep talking about the money, but for a lot of people, unfortunately, that's what it comes down to. Is some people just literally cannot afford school. I mean, our friend
Um,
Haiti got a free ride scholarship. She would not have been able to go to college if it wasn't for that. But she was a really good artist. Like she deserved it.
yeah, yeah, and I would say looking back, that was a lot of different opportunities in terms of like grants and scholarships that maybe I either wasn't educated on or made aware of. And I definitely think if I knew about them more, I would definitely have taken advantage of them.
Hmm.
But I mean, it goes back to really like not letting anyone change what you want to do artistically. I mean, nothing's impossible. I mean, me on my art journey, regardless of all the Toon Boom and Flash Animator and Photoshop stuff, grew up with a clipboard and copy paper and like a pencil. Like that was literally me the whole time. So
Nice.
um, and I think that's after I left art school. A big part of my journey, and even recently, is going back to I'd call it my roots. Like what I used to do. I would sit there with a ruler, I draw little squares, Garfield comics, I'd copy X-Men. I would just little flip books, and you get a lot of the hype to try to like be better and do it for social media, or to make it somewhere, or again to have it pay back all of this debt and stuff. And again, I lost who I was for a good while, and I'm still on my journey back.
Yeah.
To find out who I am.
I think that that's one thing that's a side effect of going to art school, like what we were talking about before. When you have, all the different things that you would ever got involved to, you've got all this new knowledge and technique, and you do end up losing yourself. And you kind of, I think you have to go through this process where you start to pick apart what you learned and what you want to keep, and what you learned and where you're like, I'm not interested in that, or that didn't help me, or that confused me. And then you have to kind of assess, recompile everything, and then, like you said, go back to your roots and be like, okay, because I mean, like, even all the 3D art I learned, not only was it outdated like a year after I graduated, but there's new software, new everything, and you're always, every time you do an art piece, you learn something new, and you just grow, and then you just have to keep.
You have to stay on top of that too. Like if you take
Oh,
a break for a
yes.
few months, like anytime that I step away from like a 3ds Max and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna go back and
And then
remodel.
there's two new
As soon as I,
versions. You're
yeah,
like,
two new versions,
everything
I'm like,
moved.
my shortcuts, where did they go? So
Ugh.
seriously, but that's where I'll just kind of like you up a bit here. Like your Discord, your community, the followers on YouTube, such a tight knit group of just inspiration to discuss art, and you've created such a wonderful place. Like I don't think, again, you and I have these conversations on the phone,
Yeah.
more than I don't even know what I'm saying. I'm just like, oh my God, I'm talking to Kai. My point being is that you created this community of just really great people, and I think that's like the one of the biggest things that again I appreciated in art school was all the friends and people that I met, and you've recreated that environment without like the math and
Yeah.
English class nonsense, if you will.
No,
So
yeah.
I mean, you're fucking cool, man.
Oh my God, stop. No, but like, that's one thing that I talked to Jazz recently about the Discord, because she's sort of like the godmother of like the Discord. But I was like, it'd be really cool. We've got an art and media section, but I think it'd be really cool to introduce something like, maybe we could do like game and animation, or whatever, and then maybe down the road do like game jams or something where people can actually have an opportunity to work on something as a team, and like, maybe give out some prizes. But we'll see, because I do love the Ink Ribbon community, and it's grown far beyond like, I'm just the tits. They're like the people who are like in it, and they're so wholesome, and I'm so proud of everybody, because they're good people. They're good.
I'll be honest. I was a little hesitant, which it's kind of hilarious because you and I were talking about this the other day. Like the first thing that's going to be brought up is like Resident Evil or questions about just
Yeah.
that franchise. And no, I legit was like I've never been on Discord before. I was like, this is all just going to be a bunch of Resident Evil nerds. No offense. I mean, I'm getting there. I'm halfway through the series,
Yeah,
and
we're
I
gonna have
love the.
Lopez on in the
Uh,
future because he's a Resident Evil virgin who has now played through all the way up to Resident Evil 5, and I'm so curious to hear his thoughts as like a new fan. But that's for a different day.
I had this like idea of like was just gonna like not know anything, kind of feel like excluded, and completely the opposite. So I mean, if anyone's listening that is just like someone that follows you purely on YouTube that hasn't checked out the Discord, it's free. People are so friendly. I mean, I would highly, suggest it. It's just fantastic.
Yeah, I like to tell people, like, if you need an internet place to hang out, like, the Discord server is a really good place, and we've got great moderators who are always like on top of everything. We make sure that everyone's behaving and all that stuff, because it's funny, every now and then one like troll will come in and the Discord just goes crazy. My moderators are like on it, they ban them, and everyone's like, oh my God, did you see what they said? And everyone like gets all like, get out of here.
That's awesome.
All right. We got a ton of questions sent in, and I want to make sure that we don't like miss any of them.
Will this be like a PBS thing where we pick up the phone and then if you like
I
donate
want to
five
do
dollars, you get a
that.
tote bag?
No, no, no. I want to do that where it's like, "Hello, caller. What's your name and what's your question?" You know, where people actually call in. But I don't know how. We'll have to set that up eventually.
Can I ask a question? Are the majority of the people that follow you on YouTube, are they younger? Like what's the demographic?
It's mixed. Like I think it's half and half because of the fact that I kind of do like the older games as my focus. I've got a lot of people who are our age, and then because Resident Evil is just an ongoing series and people are still getting into it to this day, I've got a lot of like young
Relevant,
people that
yeah.
like, Resident Evil 2 remake was the first time I played a Resident Evil game, and now they're like really into it, which is cool. So it's
Some of
nice.
some
There's
of them
like a
will know
huge.
PBS then, is what we're saying.
Some of them
Half
will.
won't.
They'll
Okay.
pretend they don't, but we see you.
Yeah. Well,
Okay. Enku Raven says, "Hi Kai, congrats on the podcast. Thank you. I love the first episode with Lisa. What would you guys recommend getting started in digital drawing? I own a Wacom drawing tablet and it's hard to get used to it. Also, what's the best software for making animations for dummies?" Hmm.
really, really good question. I mean,
Well,
there
first off, you
hard
do
to.
not need an expensive fancy tablet with like a screen on it and all that. Like,
Yeah.
okay, this is my tablet right here. It's a Wacom Intuos Pro, and I like them small, so this is what I use. It's
I
pricey, but it's worth it. I think this was like 400 when I bought it. I use it all the time, every day.
like them big, so they can sit on my lap. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying? No, same thing. So I got the Intuos Pro. Um, Real talk though, I had the Intuos 4 from college. I literally like dumped. Actually, I lie. I didn't even dump it. It's in my file cabinet because those things will last forever. So, um, I mean, whether it's like a knockoff brand, can't
yeah.
think of.
Actually, I've
There's
got
an alt.
a I've got a Huon one that's like got a screen and
Yeah,
everything, and that one was
Leon.
like $300, and it works great. It's just I couldn't get it to work with my HDMI because I had to set some stuff up. But like, I mean, as long as it's not a
No,
bamboo, I think you're okay.
I mean, there's a lot of different like programs out there. Paint Tool, Sai, Manga Studio. Isn't it called something else now? I think it's not called Manga Studio anymore.
I'm not
I don't
sure.
know. If you have an iPad, if you have that ability to get one, there's Procreate. There's Sketchbook Pro from
Oh,
Autodesk.
I've
A
got
lot of
iPad Envy.
there's a lot of different programs out there. I wouldn't really necessarily recommend one because it's more of your investment in learning the program. But I 100% would say like if you have the ability to invest in a tablet of some type, definitely do because if I I will bow down to someone that just paints with a mouse. I
Oh
don't
no.
understand that. and
I
and
hope no
and
one
there
does that.
there is a learning curve if you're going from pen and paper, pencil paper to like a tablet, sure.
Yeah.
But if you're going from traditional to just like a mouse, you're a different kind of genius, like really. Um
Yeah, there is actually a learning curve, and I remember getting very frustrated. I think I ended up doing exercises where I wrote my name and I just wrote stuff until it looked like my handwriting, like if I was writing on paper, which it never ends up like it's I don't know, drawing on a tablet like is like its own thing, but a tablet is a must. However, there is free software for pretty much everything you want to do. There's Blender, which I mean is everything from sculpting to 3D modeling to even 2D animation, and then there's like 2D 3D hybrids. It's Blender is like the best thing that's ever happened to my computer
yeah.
ever. But then, instead of Photoshop, there's GIMP, which is free. So, and then if you don't want to do Photoshop and the Adobe stuff, which I understand because it is expensive and it's subscription now, you've got like Clip Studio Paint and other programs that are a one-time purchase for like very cheap.
That's what Clip Studio Paint. It used to be Manga Studio,
Oh,
and they
really?
rebranded it. Yeah, I was like, what the heck's it
Oh,
called?
I didn't know
So
that.
that's yeah, Clip Studio. I mean, they have like and that's the other cool part too is there's so many like free to download programs if you're a student that I would highly recommend just picking one that you think that you might be interested in and just kind of going out there and a lot of them have free to download,
Yeah.
in a lot of different ways. So there's definitely accessibility.
Cool.
But what's your favorite? Like, what would you recommend? Like, just what do you use the most?
For what?
Just, I mean, I use Photoshop to draw digitally.
For drawing, yeah, I use Photoshop. My two main programs are Photoshop and Blender. I mean, I can do pretty much anything in either of those, and they're both always getting updated with new features. Like that's how I make my thumbnails for all my live streams. It's all Photoshop. Like, if you saw the before and after of like, I'll take a picture of my pajamas, like holding guns that are like orange, and then I'll like Photoshop myself into like a male Lara Croft. Um, all right. Zachary Vick, not necessarily a question, but it would be cool to see old projects you two made during the time. Ooh, I don't know about that because like I think we've
During
both
art
grown a
school?
lot. Yeah, like
Ooh,
my art from art school. I think I have some. Oh, actually, I found some the other day on my PS3. It was like really nostalgic because I was so proud of like my renders that I put them on my PS3 so I could see them on the TV. But it was like a vial of the T virus from the movies and like a chair and a strawberry, but like they're not really good. And it's cool to look back on older projects and see what you've learned because you see all the mistakes that you're the only one who notices them, but you're like, oh, I could do that way easier now. I remember struggling with that. Now it's fine, all that stuff.
yeah. A lot of my stuff. I mean, well, so you remember like there was a time. So the reason I left art school was because my art computer in my entire freshman year to wherever I was at that point had been stolen. I went to a Chipotle and I had spent like $1,200 on a laptop,
Oh,
a drawing tablet, and I just happened to have my hard drive. It was like my backup of my backup with me that day. And so me and some friends went to Chipotle, and someone smashed my friend's window and grabbed my art bag. So I had to like leave, go from a part-time job to a full-time job, and so a lot of my digital early stuff is gone. But I do have like a lot of like the old pencil drawings, and my anatomy's all like goof and stuff. So, I mean, I don't know if I'd ever show that. Like
yeah,
that's kind of
I
like,
wouldn't want to show it either. But
yeah,
it
I'm
is
not.
important to keep that for yourself because when you stumble back on it, it's like it's really magical because you're like, oh my god, I'm so much better now, and then you're like, wow.
Yeah, it's cool to see like where you progressed and kind of where you come from. So, uh,
Yeah. So sorry,
great question.
we're not
Yeah.
showing any of that, Zach.
Sorry,
But
Zachary. No.
all right. Matthew W. Ask him what he thinks of the pre-rendered backgrounds from the original Resident Evil trilogy. Maybe pointing out the insane detail that some of them. I think he's saying like the pre-rendered backgrounds and like all the work that went into them versus like the new ones.
Okay, well, and I don't want to spoil too much of like conversation with Resident Evil, like
Yeah.
my journey with it. Um, I guess that's an odd question because I don't really know where to what he's really asking. I would say that it's impressive with the technology and what they were able to do to show like a background like dimension in terms of depth and environment. Those games are super heavy in terms of creating like this feeling and vibe. Especially the early games, and then to like jump to like PlayStation 4, and you have like this whole like lighting system in the background. You have like artificial intelligence people kind of moving and zombies.
Well,
It's
okay.
just,
So
it's impressive, right?
which did you prefer? Like, let's just assume everything is the same level of graphics. Do you prefer the fixed camera, or do you prefer to be able to move the camera around?
It's a good question because I I don't know. I'm a control freak, so to be able to move the camera around, especially in scary games, and I hate scary games. So it is that's why it's also taken me so long to like jump into this franchise. Um, but artistically, the static cameras that you can't control convey such more of a mood and a focal point as to like what it wants you to see to like really set up like an intense moment.
Yeah.
I would say there's more of an appreciation. I probably lean more towards that, to be honest with you.
No, I'm the same because I've always said that the environments were the main character in the Resident Evil series, and I liked how it's like, they set up the composition of the shots and the lighting, and it looks really really nice from where they want you to see it. Plus the added bonus of you hear a monster and you can't turn the camera to see where they are.
Yeah. But I would say like just video games in general. There's a nostalgic lean towards like the 2D aspect of different things. Like you can do a lot of stuff that's like almost like 2.5D as well, where you kind of have like a 3D mix with 2D. Um, I mean, I would say that probably the 2D backgrounds are way more impressive, and I would side with.
Which, by the way, just like on a super quick tangent, I recently watched like a video about the program Softimage, which was originally like its own thing, and then Autodesk bought it and then like killed it. But Softimage like caused crazy controversy and all sorts of stuff in the visual effects community because it was used in everything from like literally Resident Evil 2 to Jurassic Park, Men in Black. I mean, everybody was using this, and then Autodesk killed it, and then everyone had to like retrain and like learn either Maya or whatever program, and like there's people still trying to like get it back now. I think even Metal Gear Solid 4 was like one of the last video games done in it, and like I didn't even know about Softimage because we didn't learn that in school, so I was just like, whoa. But anyway,
Really killed it then.
Tameri or Tameri. Hello Kai, muchas gracias to you and Bropus for doing the stream. I've got some questions. Oh, lots of questions. Okay. How have you been? Okay, we talked about how we got into art school. What opportunities do we have? I mean, I think we talked about that too. We didn't really get any offers for anything or whatever. What entry skills do you need to be applied, or what exams do you need to pass? Did they look at your artwork when you applied?
Yeah, so there actually was a test. I did like a bunch of like Ms. Marvel, Howard the Duck artwork
Oh, okay.
really weird to get in to show like I could hold a pencil and stuff like that. But I would say it's probably different depending on like where you're going. A few years ago I was trying to go back to school. I wanted to go into the Academy of Art, which is like based out of California. There's also the Joe Cooper School of Comics and Design out of New Jersey. Each one has like a different competency skill.
Yeah.
But I guess it just kind of depends on where you're going and what you're going for. That's a hard one
I
to
guess
answer.
that's a good rule of thumb is there are schools that are going to teach you and there are schools that are going to make you improve, like where you already need to be at a certain level, so keep that in mind. What drawing styles appeal to you the most? That's more for you because you're all over the place. I mean, you like comic books, but you like cartoons.
Yeah. I would say so when I say cartoons, like super stylized. And when I say that, like Sean Galloway, Scotty Young, are some of my favorite artists. I love Frank Cho. He's kind of got like this like comic strip from the 50s mixed with like this like Conan the Barbarian, Frank Frazetta type of style. Cartoons, I would say again like Butch Hartman. I love his artwork. I love like Brian Konietzko from Avatar: The Last Airbender. I love that their look with everything. And I'm trying to think who else. I mean, there's this is Craig McCracken. I love that style. They kind of like simple shapes, heavy on colors, expression. Justin Roiland, Rick. I mean, I'm wearing the shirt, right?
Yeah.
Rick and Morty. I would probably say, okay, my all-time favorite, and this is something I think you and I talked about, like with Lisa, who was saying that she had tried out for someone on regular show. JG Quintel. Love that guy. I mean, his style is a mix between heavy stylization and almost like this weird, like it's kind of realistic, but in a cartoon dream kind of situation.
Right.
So I lean more towards like the cartoony aspect of things versus like, a lot of like what like anime and manga and like,
Okay.
that makes sense.
No,
I don't know.
yeah. And I just don't know those artists by name, so I'll have to look them up later. One like I'm kind of like weird. I don't have a specific like thing that I just like what I like, and the artist that immediately comes to mind as probably my all-time favorite artist is Shinkiro. I don't know what his first or last name is, but he does all the SNK, Capcom, King of Fighters art, and he's got this amazing style. He's also done Resident Evil art as well, where it's like they're kind of stylized anime realistic hybrids, but they've got like these very dark black outlines, but then the shading is like semi-realistic. It's such a unique look. I've never seen anyone like, if I was to learn how to do art and copy an artist, I would want to do like his work. So yeah, I'll show you his work after the stream so you can see, but it's so good.
I would say that artwork kind of falls in like the stylized realism, and I mean that, yeah, like
Because
that's
realistic is like kind of boring, like, you know, I mean, it's impressive, but if you can't do something interesting with it, it's like just looking at a picture, you know, like that's why it doesn't really impress people. Ask the Greeks and the Romans, they'll tell you.
They're dead. They're all gone.
Okay. Komi-sama Believer. A simple question, but very important. I loved video games from the beginning of my life, and one thing I always adore are animation. The slick movement of Big Boss when he automatically takes cover in Metal Gear Solid 5, frame-by-frame animation in Tekken, and Sifu. All of them have rekindled my longtime interest in taking animation class, but here's the question. Is it worth it in the long run? I know that finding a job would be difficult in this pandemic, but that's by the point. Is it going to be a dream job, or am I in for a rude awakening later on? Okay, I think I understand the question. So, as we talked about, getting a job in a professional field is like, I mean, it's really, really hard, because not only is it hard just in general, but you're against really cutthroat competition. Like, you know, artists are nice people, but when it comes to work, like, they don't fuck around. Like, you know, because you have to. Like, when I had so many friends who were better artists than me, and when I would get a better grade, oof, like. But again, that goes to like what you're good at, and if you really love animation, I mean, just learn how to animate. That's something you can definitely learn with the 12 steps of an animation book, which I'll let you talk about, and then also like lots and lots of YouTube tutorials on that. But you need to start with really, really simple things. There's also that animation mentor class that I mentioned. Yeah, this book,
Literally.
every teacher, every animator, like, this is the book. And, you know, even when I have to do, like, animations for video games and stuff, I follow those techniques. I mean, it's spot on. But what do you
Richard
think as
Williams
far
is
as
fantastic.
the job prospects? Like,
Oh, to straight and simple, 100% always worth it. But I think that's the other thing though too is again, a lot of people will have this like idolization of I need to go to DreamWorks, I need to work for Disney. You have social media, TikTok, Instagram,
Yep.
YouTube. These are all free. Like, and I don't want to like crush someone's like dream of saying like, oh, I'll never make it. Disney and Pixar have the artists already that are professional, that are huge, that are producing all this work. It's not to say that they're better, it's that they're just doing it. And if you want to get under the radar, it's kind of the same thing where getting into like a legit art school, it's not necessarily like your talent, it's your drive, it's your willingness to put in that effort. It's the amount of work that you've done. And I would kind of say like reframe the perspective of saying like, oh, like, is it worth it to get to this point where someone will hire me? It's you have the talent and that drive, you have the outlets to promote yourself. That should be the route really that we're pushing.
Well, I'm really glad that you mentioned that, because I forgot about that. Like, nowadays, before you'd have to go to Cartoon Network or Nickelodeon or somebody to get your show made. You'd need funding and all that. But now we have the tools at home to make our own stuff, even if it's 3D animation, 2D animation, whatever, animation story times. And it can be small effort, big effort. It's all up to you. Perfect example of this, if you guys remember the Dead Fantasy series, where there was a guy who just loved animating, and he would have girls from Dead or Alive and girls from Final Fantasy.
Tony, the guy that died, right?
Yeah.
Oh
But
man, that guy was
example,
fantastic.
like, If you
Yeah.
make stuff, people will love it. And not only do you have to, like, because I want to start an animation channel. I've told Lopez about this. I want him to start an animation channel, but he's very, like, stubborn.
Busy man. I got stuff to do
Um,
later.
but like for example, tutorials. If you know how to do something, or you learned how to do something, like, make tutorials or just make your little animations. They don't have to be long. Like, just have fun with it. Like, don't even treat it like you're trying to make money. Just start a YouTube channel, Instagram, social media, and just post your stuff. You're gonna get mean comments, you're gonna get nice comments. It's just part of it. Just enjoy the ride, do what you got to do, and you'll improve and you'll learn. And not only that, but let's say you get lucky and you end up successful. The companies look at that. They will see, oh, this guy's got, like, 200,000 subscribers and his animation's pretty good. Let's see if he wants to help us work on this. Or they'll sponsor you and be like, if you promote this, we'll pay you and whatever. So in a roundabout way, you can end up making a living doing, animation or other projects like that.
I would say like one of the more relevant artists that I kind of stumbled across is, do you remember we talked about Corridor Crew?
Right.
They had an artist on there named Beeple, and don't get me wrong, respect the guy, love his art style, but he's not doing anything necessarily like in terms of like 3D artwork that's any more impressive than a lot of other people out there. It's realistically, he was doing it for like 10, 12 years every single day. So the commitment and drive to do that, and with this weird like NFT thing, which I don't feel like I'm an expert to talk on it, to be honest with you, but it was the fact that he had just so much artwork that was so consistent to why he was able to kind of maybe that's trying to connect two pieces that really don't make sense. But the point is, as long as you're consistent, as long as you're willing to just be authentic to yourself, you don't really need to ask that question like, am I gonna do all this work and then have like a promise of Cartoon Network or
Yeah.
DreamWorks or wherever else? Like, no, if you just do it, you're doing art for you, and you can make it because you've established that
Yeah,
yourself
and
there.
and that's really what it comes down to, is like, because, like, even if you did end up with Cartoon Network, they're gonna tell you can't do this, you can't do that, you have to change that, and they're gonna ruin your vision, like, because that's just what happens. But on the internet, you can do whatever you want, and, like, people really respond to passion. If you're really passionate about something and enjoy it, people pick up on that and they want to support you. That's why Patreon and all that ends up being successful for people, because people are, they'll donate money just to be like, yeah, like, I support you, I'm proud of you, like, keep it up, and that's it.
Do you ever watch Gravity Falls? You seen
I
that show?
haven't.
So Alex Hirsch, another one of my like favorite artists, same thing though. Like had this idea, and anyone that's out there that's a Gravity Falls fan, if like very intricate, over the top, like just like his story building is so fantastic. No one cared about Gravity Falls, and he had to take that and shop it around for so many years. Same thing with Steven Hillenburg, creator of SpongeBob. Like, he had like just like it was like a 10-second on a napkin elevator pitch, but it was the passion, the desire, the want to like do something. And sometimes it'll be right off the bat, and sometimes it'll be years
Hmm.
and be way more in depth than like a SpongeBob episode. It'll be a Bill Cipher, kind of situation. But it's they're true to who they are. They loved mystery. The other loved marine biology, and and they were themselves. And at some point, they got that opportunity or the ability to show that. And I would say that Gravity Falls and SpongeBob are like one of the best cartoon shows out there because it's so genuine, it's so personable,
Yeah.
regardless of like it being studio made. But
Well, and then
be
also,
you.
it can become studio made. There's a thing on Netflix. I don't know if it still is on Netflix, but it started on YouTube as just like someone's like project that they did. It's like Honeybee or Bumblebee and like the magical something. I don't know. I don't remember, but it's like just an animated show. But it looks like a little kid's like cartoon show, but it's got like a lot of like mature, not not mature dirty, but like mature, like we're speaking to
How
an
about
older audience. Like,
Happy Tree Friends?
no, that's mature, like gore. I'm talking about, like,
Okay.
the struggles of being lost in life, and that kind of stuff, which kids wouldn't really pick up on. But it was like a really well produced show, and then Netflix said, "Hey, make season 2 and we'll give you money," and they funded it. I think that's what happened. Don't quote me on that, but like,
Interesting.
things like that can happen. Just never neglect that you have so many platforms, TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, whatever, where you have immediate worldwide reach. That's the easy part. The part is actually getting eyes on it, but like that's a conversation for a different day. Okay, that was a long answer, but I hope
A
that
lot.
helped. um,
Somewhere in there. Hopefully you found it.
okay, G Jerry, or GG Airy, taking a first dive in animation / game design, what would you say is the most challenging part on a beginner level standpoint?
Um, probably learning the shortcuts is the biggest challenge because just pick up an eraser or you can crumple your paper and whatever. You have these ideas that are so fluid in your head, and as soon as you start to like jump into some of these digital programs, there's layers and buttons and windows upon windows. I think that's the biggest, essentially navigation. I would say is
Yeah,
probably one
well,
of the
there's
bigger
so much
challenges.
to learn, like getting started. Like, I mean, you just have to literally learn how to use the programs, and that's a
Oh,
whole thing. But you literally, like, just if you're gonna learn how to do anything, just find a tutorial online and just do it. I mean, look for beginner tutorials in whatever program or thing that you're trying to do and just follow them. And like, even if it's something completely like, if you want to learn how to do a fight scene, but then they show you how to animate or like model a cake in Blender, like just do it. You will
the
learn
cake.
stuff that you didn't think you'd learn, and like eventually you get to the point where I know you've probably done this too, where you're drawing on paper and then you mess up and your brain says
Control
Control
Z.
Z, yeah.
Not there. Yeah, it doesn't
And
exist.
you're
You're like,
like, fuck, like I
damn
have to
it.
like actually erase this or like whatever.
Yeah.
um Agro Hamtaro, oh, I love Hamtaro.
Oh,
um
ham.
how about a podcast with your life in Japan? Oh yeah, oh, I could talk. You can ask Lopez. I talked about
Uh,
Japan way too much. All right, that's for the future.
I I want a suggestion or like I want to say like if you do that, it has to be with Lisa because I think Lisa asked the best questions, especially in that first podcast. If you guys haven't
Okay.
listened to it, go check it out. But I really think that you should have her on that one.
Yeah, I messaged Lisa actually. I left her a voice message on just Instagram, and I was like, "Oh my god, like people are loving you, and like you inspired people to read again." And she was like, "Oh my god." Rash SR. In one video, you told us that you go to art school during the PS3 era. The number of polygons from 3D models and objects has increased dramatically since then. How does this affect your workflow? Is it more tedious, or is the effort the same? So yeah, as I said, by the time I graduated, I like it was already like outdated, but it's easier to work now because you don't have the limits that you had back then, because before you'd have to like make something and then like cut it down until it was like fitting, okay, this will be able to handle in the game. And now like literally with Unreal Engine 5 there's literally no polygon limits, like just go crazy.
I really enjoy the low poly style.
Yeah.
In 3D, I just think it's more intuitive. It's more creative. You do a lot more with like less, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
But no, I think the same thing. Like I have these ideas of like these different game things I want to do, and then they come out with like this, what is it? We on Unreal 5 now or whatever,
Yeah.
and they're like a million polygons in real time, and like no one gives a shit anymore. So
Yeah, it's just
um,
like,
that was such a big thing in school too, was like poly limits. Anything over 500, I think, was a high poly. Anything under, and it was very like if you are going to make something, there was this like small line of like high and low type of
well, and there
situation.
was a lot more discipline because like for example, like for PSP graphics, the PSP cannot load textures bigger than 512 by 512. So you had to really pack every UV as absolutely tight as you possibly could, and you don't have to do that
Hate
anymore. I mean,
hate on
it's
wrapping. That's like my worst thing
I
about
used
3D.
to hate it, and now it's relaxing. I kind of meditate. That's where I'll put on stuff like this, like a podcast or a show or whatever, and I'll just zone out. Sometimes I even pop a gummy because it's just repetitive nonsense, and I'll just be like, unwrapping. Duh, duh, duh.
See, like something like that is like vacuuming, doing the dishes. That's calming. Like you can like check out. Unwrapping is so aggravating for me. I hate UV
Well,
mapping.
and this goes into why a proper workflow is important because the way that I work is I unwrap my low poly and get it all set up, and then I duplicate it and turn that into a high poly so that way, like, I don't have to like reverse engineer anything or do any complicated stuff. But that's more of a tutorial thing, and yeah, I really need to get
Should
back on
do
my
a
tutorial
tutorial
channel.
channel.
I have
Yeah.
it, but like I just I'm always so busy I forget to upload. You're welcome to contribute, by the way.
Absolutely not. Not at all.
Okay. The Greens.
Subscribe.
Hi, Kai and Bropez. I just want to ask, what made you guys want to go to art school? Is it because of a hobby or something else?
Um, no, 100%. I don't think I've ever shared this with anyone other than like girlfriend. Um, and I've already kind of mentioned like Marvel a few times, like where I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to, but it really goes back to my grandma and wanting to
Hmm.
do a comic strip because I'm super into Garfield, and that's kind of how I started to get into the comic universe of art, and that's what motivated me to want to go to an art school to begin with. Obviously, went a whole different direction with video game art and design and with like animation, cartooning. But that's where I came from.
I would
If it wasn't for
love
Garfield,
love for you to do like a comic strip like that. Like put it
yeah,
on like Webtoon or whatever that thing is. Like I would totally like follow it every day and look forward to it.
yeah, yeah.
If you're
Well,
watching this in the comments, encourage him because he is such a good artist, and I try so hard to be like, make comics and art. Like I know it will make you happy, you stupid son of.
do art.
So for me, I remember playing games like I started with Game Boy and then I did Super Nintendo and it was okay. I enjoyed them and it was fun. But then when the PS1 era hit and there was 3D graphics, I cannot describe the feeling of seeing 3D graphics. Like the intro to Resident Evil 2, I mean, or Tomb Raider, I would watch those cutscenes over and over and just completely mystified. Like, how did they do this? This is amazing. It was literally magic and it never went away for all my life, adolescence into like going into college. I was like, this is what I want to do. Like I have to learn how to do this. And I mean,
You
uh,
remember your first 3D game? What was the first one?
um Ridge Racer. When I got my
Racer?
PS1, I got Ridge Racer, Doom, which is sort of 3D, but like not that impressive. And then uh I can't remember. I think. Oh man, I can't remember. I just know that Ridge Racer was like the first real like 3D game, and then at some point I got Crash Bandicoot and Tomb Raider and Resident Evil, and it was like,
Yeah.
that was it. There was no going back now.
Mine was Mario 64. That's kind of how I was introduced.
Oh, were you a
Again,
Nintendo 64 kid?
no, my uncle had because we've talked about this. I grew up with a Sega Genesis, so anything anti-Nintendo, like I was legit all wrapped up in that
Oh yeah,
90s
you're a
feud.
Sonic
Like,
boy.
yeah, no, I love Sonic, man, and like that's why it was so weird to be introduced to the 3D world of video games through Mario. I was like, I hate this guy, but I was like, I love that you can like turn your camera. I don't know if you've ever gone back to like some of those earlier games.
Hmm.
So much jank, but as a kid, you're like, oh man, this is so cool. We can turn this way.
Yeah.
Man, that's neat.
No, it's really funny because like it's one of those things where I can't see games like the way that people now see them because we've got nostalgia goggles on. You see them with all the childhood magic and everything, but people just see them as they are. Like I'm going through an interesting thing like that right now because I've never liked Final Fantasy VII. I always thought it looked awful. I didn't care about the story, but I'm literally playing through 7 remake for the second time right now to get the trophies, and I've been converted. I'm a Final Fantasy VII fan now, and I prefer the new one, and I appreciate what they did at the original because they were still figuring out 3D games and all that, but you know yeah, I don't know. Anyway, okay, we gotta keep going. Comic Girl.
Oh, I
Hey,
like Common Girl.
yeah, she's
Girl, hey.
awesome. Hey, Inky and Bropez, what kind of animation projects have you worked on, Bropez? And do you prefer 2D animation or 3D animation? We know Kai is trying to make games and an animation channel. Are you going to help him with those endeavors? I hope both of you continue to stay good friends. Aw.
No, after this, we're done talking forever.
Yeah, this is it. This is like the final
That's it.
conversation.
Nothing big, nothing. A lot of my animation has been like like teaching, self projects. There's been a lot of like just exploration, I guess, in not just like 2D, but like 3D. And I think I'm still trying to like figure out what exactly I'm trying to do. Um, we've had that discussion, right? Like,
Many
we-
times.
what we you have so many different ideas, and there's so many things that I want to like collaborate with you on and stuff. I think it's just time. And what was that? Do you remember a few years ago, before this whole COVID stuff, we were talking about like this mermaid versus like Martians thing? Remember this?
No.
Don't remember that? That was like one of my favorite things that we had talked about. Like, it was some kind of video game. It was like, literally, it was mermaids versus Martians.
I don't remember that. Are you sure it was with
Don't
me?
remember?
I don't
It
remember
was
this at
with you.
all.
I don't talk to anybody else. You're the only one I talk to.
Well, I've got really bad memory, but I usually remember like project ideas. Mermaids? Okay, you'll have to tell me about that afterwards because I'm so sorry. That sounds
Well,
cool.
that was yeah. No. I guess it's just a lot of goofing around. Like, so anything that I've worked on, especially for my art stuff, I've like hidden or privated just because not like 100% confident in it, or like feel like it's something I want to
You
show
guys, his
necessarily.
artwork is so fucking good. I'm not talking him up. Like his stuff looks like it could be on Cartoon Network or Nickelodeon right now. It's so professional. It's so good. His character designs are great. I'm trying everything I can to like just hold him up and be like, "Be successful. I love you."
Here's a question for comic book girl. What's your favorite comic book?
Oh, I think she
The
answered that on my
comics.
live stream one time, but yeah, I'll let her answer that.
Question though.
Cool. Okay. Um, effervescent soliloquy. Do you have to be good at drawing or painting to succeed in animation? I sucked in art class in high school and paint on a canvas.
No, I don't think you have to be like anything
Well,
spectacular.
don't animators usually get like, especially 3D animation, they're like, here's the here's the figure, animate it, you know? Like you already get the model.
Oh, well, yeah, okay, so in that context, yeah. I mean, the video game industry is so compartmentalized. You're not always going to be someone that's doing the animation, the designing of the character, the concept art, the actual programming. It's broken up into different pieces. Um, so I would say that you don't have to be like good at everything, like a jack of all trades. I mean, it's nice to like know other like skill sets just because it
Mm-hmm.
kind of helps with certain things. And I would say the understanding of like movement and expression and anatomy is super helpful in animation. Especially when it comes to like, I mean, that will be like some of like the 12 principles of animation, like locomotion, what's like reaction, over exaggeration, timing. Um, you know, um,
Yeah,
all
because I
that
mean,
kind of plays into it.
if you look at that
Yeah,
book, it's like you start with stick figures and circles, and then once the animation is there, then you draw the rest in. So if you can
yeah,
animate a
yeah,
stick figure, that's your starting point, and then just work up from there.
exactly. Oh, no, good question though.
The Cell Productions. Were there any projects either of you had to give up on because it was overambitious, or you just couldn't care for it anymore? Thanks for taking questions. So many, so many unfinished projects. Jesus Christ, I don't even know where to begin with that. Like, because it's hard. You think that's something that's really important. Is I think people don't understand how important planning is, and that's why I think I succeed in game design. Because before you even start drawing, before you even start like actually making anything, you need to write it all down. So let's say, for example, you want to make a little short animation. You don't just start drawing. You got to like, okay, how many characters are going to be in it? What is the setting? Are they going to be in one room? Are they going to be in multiple rooms? Are they going to be outside, inside? You know, you have to write out the script. You have to do all of that.
Storyboarding.
And once
Um,
all of that is ready, and then, yeah, voiceovers, then you can start your project. And there's so many people who just start and then they immediately like just veer off and explode because they don't know what direction it's supposed to go or what's supposed to be happening. So no matter what you do, I don't care, drawing, animation, whatever, plan it out. It is the most important thing, because then everything else is, you just follow the plan and you're good.
I would also say though too, and take it from someone who I would say is an expert in overthinking. Sometimes you can do too much, and I mean, you and I have talked
That's
about
true.
Fleeing Force, my comic slash like it's now a cartoon. You can do too much. You can like over like develop it. You can have basically where it becomes so big, scope of the project just is almost unbearable. I have literally three different like phases of how I want to roll this like project out, because of just the rewriting, the designs that have changed. You've seen the characters that have developed, since like college.
Yeah.
There's definitely that aspect. I wouldn't say I've walked away from that. There is a comic idea. I'm a big fan of Cena Grace. He's an indie comic book artist. I think he's from Image Comics. He does this like it's basically like Little Depressed Boy is the story he does, and it's kind of like a slice of life, just really depressing kind of situation, really wholesome and heartfelt. But I want to kind of do something similar, and there's a story that I've had called Dirty Rotten Pixel Love. It's like uh, it's the idea of like online dating, and like this like virtual world, and the main character's a robot, and it's like him trying to connect with like what emotion is in a disconnected world. I
Like
don't know.
social media and all that stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And that's something I've not abandoned. I don't want to say that. It's something I've shelved, and I'll be like, oh, I'll come back to it
Okay.
later.
So like, just using that as like a template of how I would go about things, because I love being a producer. Lopez knows this. Is like, not every you let's say you want to make a cartoon for a TV show or whatever. You don't start with that, especially if you're an individual, because that's just impossible
No.
for one person to do, literally. I would start with a 3-panel or 4-panel comic that you do once a week, once a month, whatever you can handle, and just put on Instagram, put on social media, whatever. Just have those characters doing something in your world that you've created, and that allows you to not only put it out there and mark it as your own, because you don't have to actually file a copyright to own something. You just have to have put it out there and have a date stamp, be like, that's mine. Just so you know, like legally, I've had lawyers tell me that. But also, like, you start as a comic, you start to build an audience, you start to flesh out the story, the characters, and then you can work on maybe smaller like animations, like little like animated gifs of just the character dancing or something, and then you start to slowly bring this thing to life, and eventually you get down the road to making a full, pilot episode or whatever. So like, if you break things down into bite-sized tasks, I think that's like a recipe for success if you're an individual. If you've got a whole team, great. I don't know why you're listening to us, because
Well, I would even say like it'd be cool to see one day, and I know you have like a whole bunch of different projects on your plate, but it'd be cool to see like a behind the scenes workflow for one of your videos, like concept, scripting, editing, and then actually just like uploading it, and then just like your steps of like how you like time management. I have not seen anyone that is more like on point with like lists and making sure they get shit done other than you.
because
Like,
I have to.
yeah,
Nothing will get done if I don't. Like, it's
yeah.
it's not that I'm disciplined. It's more that I had to learn how to like just do this whole YouTube thing, because it's like a hamster wheel. If you stop running, it's like, oh no, like, keep it going.
Kind of like CPR your hamster back alive if you like take too long. Like, wait, keep going.
Yeah, maybe I'll have to have like someone on, because I've thought about doing that as a video. Like, here's how I make a video, but to be completely honest, it would be fucking boring as hell. Like, there's no way to make it interesting, because it's not interesting. Like, I'd have to sum it up real quick. But Diamond, we just recorded a podcast yesterday, and she said she really loved my vlog video and wants to see like more of that. So I don't know. We'll see. Like,
I need more. I need more Sims slash Starbucks videos. I need early ink ribbon. Where did those go?
hey, listen, any excuse to break away from Resident Evil for 5 minutes, I'm there. Not that I don't love
Tomb Raider
Resident
month.
Evil, but sometimes
Tomb
it's
Raider
like,
month.
yeah,
Let's
that's
extend
literally
it.
what Tomb Raider month is for. It's for me to take a break from Resident Evil, so that I
No,
don't
no
end up.
hate. No hate for Resident Evil. I
Never.
love Tomb Raider month. I love Tomb
I
Raider
owe
month.
my livelihood to Resident Evil. I'll never not love it. Um, Emma Evans, does it piss you guys off with if people look down on your career choice? I'm an artist and I'm fed up with people looking down their nose at me because it doesn't make money.
What was the question? Does it bother me? Does it
Yeah,
like
when people are like, "Oh, you're an artist," like how sad for you. Like get a real
um
job.
no, because I think I'm pretty badass. No. No, I mean, when I was younger, my family, like, it's always going to be like oh, so you don't want to be a doctor or a lawyer. You always have like this weird, I would say that comes from like unhealthy friends or family
Mm-hmm.
that are maybe in your life and that you don't have the privilege or opportunity to kind of like distance yourself from. That was a big part of my journey too, was like, okay, like I'm valid, I'm important. This is what I want to do with my life, and I'm not like don't let any of those bad vibes in. If someone in your life is going to turn their nose down to you, I mean, without art, there's no marketing, there's no media, there's nothing. Like there's so much is involved on every level, in everything that we do that encompasses art. If someone can't like grasp that, then that's not anyone you want to like hang out with or like have
Yeah,
in your
and
life.
that's a really good point because you have to also remember there's a lot of people in this world who are not creative thinkers at all. They're more like math and logic focused, and sometimes those people literally do not understand why anyone would want to do art. They don't appreciate it, they don't get it, and it's not anything personal. That's just how they're wired to think. You also have simple-minded people who don't see the irony in making fun of you for pursuing something that you love while they're at jobs that they hate for like big corporations or whatever. So like um, I agree with Lopez. Find a support system of people who you don't want people who are just gonna tell you like, oh yeah, it's great, and like lie to your face. But you want people who will support you and like offer feedback and be like, yeah, you can do it, just fix this little thing or whatever. Because like, I mean, me and Lopez do that to each other all the time. Like, he'll send me stuff and be like, what do you think of this character? And I'll be like, yeah, it's awesome. Or I'll send him something I'm working on and be like, does this look weird, because I'm trying to make this work. And it's really good to have another artist in your life. So yeah, and don't let the bad vibes in. I think that's really really good advice
surround
because
yourself surround yourself with like-minded people, and I would say a lot of like the if you have someone that is kind of like trashing you or has that mentality towards you, a lot of it's jealousy, to be honest
mm-hmm.
with you. A lot of it's just they didn't have those opportunities, or they're stuck in a position of like a 9 to 5 that they're not happy with. They see you with potential and this creativity, and they just want to cause pain because that's what they're dealing with.
And
So
touching on that, there's an interesting phenomenon that happens that I've experienced personally. When I started doing YouTube, so many people gave me shit about it. Like, oh, like, you're a YouTuber. Like, the whole get a real job and all that stuff. Which, by the way, 7 hours of editing per video. Like, if I was working at a film production house, that's a real job. But doing it on my own, oh, I'm a deadbeat loser. Okay, whatever. But what ended up happening is as I became more successful, got more subscribers, started like actually making a living doing this, every one of those people changed their tune. It's not like, oh yeah, well, my friend, he's a YouTuber, he's so cool, and like I'm like, yeah, okay, fuck you. Like, and
it
people won't do
changes.
that. So like just worry about yourself. And I know it's hard, like especially when people are mean, but you gotta just don't let it get you down.
Yeah, yeah. No, surround yourself with like-minded people that are gonna like promote and support you and
Yeah.
cheer you on. I would say don't worry and don't involve yourself with people that aren't going to be there for your
And
journey
also,
and support you.
if it's something like family where you can't really like not be around them, like let's say you have your mom hates your art and makes fun of you for it, don't show her any more of your art, don't talk about it to her, just don't put yourself in the position where you're gonna be subjected to that. Just like
It's a privilege to access that part of your life and those dreams and those ideas. And so if someone wants to come in there with a negative attitude, you have that option to decide you're no longer welcome here. I would say
and
that's the biggest thing.
there's also so many online communities that you can be a part of that are going to have people who will support you, and you're going to make like real genuine friends. Like you know,
We're up in Discord.
well, there's my Discord, which maybe is not the best for that, although there is an art section. And people post their art like every day. I love, like, I'm a lurker in there, but I mean, I'm part of other Discords too where I'm also a lurker. But like every type of thing you think that you're the only one that's into, there's like a community for that. I mean, I'm part of ones that are like not safe for work tutorials for Blender, like how to do like, you know, boob jiggling animations or whatever, or like, you know, Sims, Pokemon, whatever, and just, you know, yeah, and not just Discord. There's like Reddit and Twitter and stuff. Like you seek these people out, you will find them, and just like another thing with that is use social media the way it's intended, and it will make your life so much better. Don't just put stuff and then sit there and be like, how come nobody's commenting on it? Go to other people's work, and if you see it, don't just hit the like button, leave a comment and like be like, hey, I really love your artwork, because you'd be surprised how many people respond to that, and then they'll go check out your stuff, and you can start to form, you know, communities that way. So
Engagement's pretty important, and I would say I'm kind of a big proponent to like promote that. But then the same thing, I'm like lurking. I'm like, who's saying what? What? You know, I'll hang out on the Discord and kind of just watch people and not say anything because it's more entertaining and safe.
yeah,
I would say, like, you know, putting yourself out there, and like you want someone to comment and look at your stuff. It's almost kind of like, you know, you have to actively do the same thing. You know,
yeah,
go out there and engage.
and you will have people that you want to engage with, and maybe the first couple times you comment, they're not going to reply anything to you, but I guarantee you they go to your profile, they look at your stuff, and eventually, if they don't come around and start talking to you, just, you know, maybe start doing that with someone else, because I've made a lot of friends that way. I mean, like, that's how I, you know, connected with the other Resident Evil YouTubers and stuff like that. So all right, we've gone over time. I'm talking for almost an hour and a half.
Wow.
But we're going to go ahead and end this here. Thank you so much for sending in all your questions. I hope that we did a good job answering them and kind of telling you about art school. But Bropus, do you have any closing thoughts? Anything you want to promote? Anything you want to say?
No, not anything I want to promote. I mean, if you guys haven't been checking out Kai's videos, you
I meant
stream
for
what,
you.
pretty much. Oh, for me, I'm not working on anything.
Oh, God.
No, man, why? Now it's gonna
His
get
artwork
awkward.
is so good. I'm telling you.
Yeah, no, well, stay tuned. There's a lot of different things that I'm working on this year. I don't want to announce anything just yet, but you know, keep an eye out, I guess. You can follow me at BropesArt on Instagram.
Yeah,
I
which
love
will be
to.
right under his face.
Yeah. What are you working on right now?
Oh, we don't need to get into that. So many things. Like
So many
4
things.
video
Not
games,
easy, right?
2 YouTube channels, this podcast. Yeah. Cool. And we're going to have Lopez back to give us his thoughts as a Resident Evil virgin who has now experienced about half the series thus far. And we're going to see what it's like from a fresh perspective. So stay tuned for that. I will post a thing on the community tab so you can ask him your questions. But we are going to end this here. Thank you guys so much for watching. And please subscribe. We're trying to hit 1,000 subscribers. We're almost there. I don't know if we'll be there by the time this goes live, but yeah, thank you so much for the support, and remember to drink water. Bye.
Guys.